study. We started Hosea last week. I know last week we focused on Hosea and the concept of him. God required him to marry a prostitute in the first chapter of Hosea. And I'd like to get somewhat into the backstory of the reason why God wanted that shock value to the children of Israel with the picture of the prophet marrying a prostitute. He told them that they'd have gone a whoring after other gods. And first of all, does anyone know the principal mythological thing that the Canaanites focused on? Some would call it the persona of some person, the idol. Ashtaroth was
Babylonian.
Yeah, Baal. Baal at this point in time was the main mythological figure. Looked like a bull and a man and a mishmash. Baal to the Canaanites is one of the ones that the Canaanites believed brought rain. And that's one of the reasons why Israel suffered a famine for as many years as they did, for God to show them that Baal wasn't responsible for anything, including the rain. Go ahead, Brother Ian.
Baal was also thought to be the god of the sea, and when their ship was going down and they started taking water, they would take buckets of water, they'd toss it out while crying out, Baal, Baal.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. And one thing I want to point out is there's a lot of poetry that's in the book of Psalms. And as you read some of the descriptors of God and the things that he's responsible for, the things that he does, the psalmist will say a lot of things about what God does. And as you read on some of the things that the mythological idols, people believe that they did or were responsible for, many things in the book of Psalms were period, how do you put that? Appropriate. They were appropriate for that period in that, like today, people talk about Mother Nature, right? We say Father God, they say Mother Nature. Mother Nature is responsible for blah, blah, blah. No, it's Father God. And so we talk about it's period appropriate today to say that, God brought this beautiful day. It's not Mother Nature that brought the winter. It's God's seasons. We see that in the Bible. God in heaven, that is the God of the Hebrews, the God of the Christian, is the one that created all things, spoke things into existence. And in the book of Psalms, there's many things that describe God that is the antithesis of what idols did. So as you read on, like when it says that he came skipping on the clouds, that is directly pointing at you say the idol does this, or, you could say Asheroth or Baal or El or whatever you want to say was their God, or the God that is the true God actually does this. He's responsible for all of these, for not only everything, but he is the antithesis to their supposition that, and Baal began in, the first time we see Baal in the Bible was when the children of Israel came out of Egypt in Numbers. I wrote that down someplace. We'll come to that. Numbers chapter 22. In Numbers 22 and verse 41, Balaam was approached by Balak. Balak wanted Balaam to curse the children of Israel in the name of Baal. It's their idol. Balak's idol, Balak's god was Baal. And so that's the first time we hear of Baal. That's the 14th century BC. Hosea comes along in the 8th century. They've really refined the worship of false god. It's a horrible deal in Israel that they have left God for the god of the Canaanites, what they believe to be God. And today, there's many people that say that all of this lore, that Yahweh came with all of this lore, which is a complete lie about the God of the Bible. Yahweh didn't come along with Baal and El and all of those other things. In some ways, as you read about the descriptors of Baal, those things that they give him responsibility for, those people had just enough. It's kind of like you picture the Muslim faith. That guy that founded that had read just enough Bible to make a religion that is just enough truth to be alluring to the people that believe in the Muslim faith. That is another idol. The Muslim faith is directly against God, just like the worship of Baal. I mean, they don't put up idols, but they pray to a false god. And those things that they attribute to their God is kind of the same as the attributes that are attributed to Baal. So, one thing that we'll start seeing as we read Hosea is at the time of Hosea, the kingdom of Israel is separated. There's Israel and Judah. Israel is the 10 southern tribes. That's what I was going to do when I got here, is look for that book. What's that?
Israel's the northern ones.
Israel's the northern ones, and Judah's the southern tribes. So the north, that's true, because I don't know why I got that mixed up. The northern tribes, Israel, was influenced by the Canaanites that were north of them. Right now, it's modern-day Syria. A lot of the literature that's derived from what we understand they thought Baal to be came from a town called Ugarit in Syria. So if you're curious about Baal, if you look up Ugarit, it'll come up with the cuneiform tablets and things like that that they found about this idol that the Hittites and I don't remember what all the Girgasites and those northern people were worshiping Baal. Let's begin in 1 Kings chapter 12. In 1 Kings chapter 12, I'm going to try and remember next week to dig out a map so you can see the northern and southern kingdoms. So when we read in Hosea and it talks about Israel, it's the 10 tribes. When it talks about Judah, that is Benjamin and Judah, Jerusalem. Yeah, it's Jerusalem. The northern tribes is Israel. The southern tribes is the Judah and Benjamin. They're the last to go away from God. Israel is the first that was led into captivity, especially by the Babylonians. But we're today we're getting a little bit of backstory of leading up to the 12 books that we're going to study, including Hosea. I think it's kind of significant that the Jewish Bible groups they call it the lesser prophets, but I don't think they are. But I guess you'd say the lesser writings of the prophets. From Hosea, Joel, Amos, Obadiah, Jonah, Micah, Nahum, Habakkuk, Zephaniah, Haggai, Zechariah, Malachi. Those are 12. I think that's significant, that number. They were all in one book in the Jewish Bible. That's why there's only 24 books in the Jewish Bible. Okay, 1 Kings chapter 12. I want to start with Brother John. Let's just read from verse 25 to the end of the chapter. We are in 1 Kings chapter 12. So go ahead, Brother John. $25.
You said 12, I thought.
Yeah, 1 Kings 12, 25.
Oh, 25, that's making it 12. Then Joabam,
Yep.
Jeroboam, thank you, built Shiloh in Mount Ephraim, and dwelt there, and went out from there, and built Peniel.
And Jeroboam said in his heart, now shall the kingdom return to the house of David.
If this people go up to do sacrifice in the house of the Lord at Jerusalem, then shall the heart of this people turn again unto their Lord, even unto Rehoboam, king of Judah, and they shall kill me, and go again to Rehoboam, king of Judah.
Whereupon the king took counsel, and made 2 calves of gold, and said unto them, it is too much for you to go up to Jerusalem. Behold thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt.
And he set one in Bethel, and the other he put in Dan.
And this thing became a sin, for the people went to worship before the one, even unto Dan.
And he made an house of high places, and made priests of the lowest of the people, which were not of the sons of Levi.
Jeroboam ordained a feast in the 8th month, the 15th day of the month, like unto the feast that is of Judah, and he offered upon the altar. So did he at Bethel, sacrificing
Okay. So this is the beginning of the separation of the tribes of Israel, the northern. And I've talked about this before, but when Jeroboam is saying going up to Israel, it's not like north to south, it's in elevation. You're going from the lower elevation to the upper to Jerusalem. So we would say to go down to Jerusalem because it's south. They would say to go up because they're climbing up to the hills of Jerusalem. Is there any comments as we read this? Brother Aaron?
You'll notice, this is the God that they saw with their own eyes, have parted the Red Sea for them to cross and leave the land of Egypt to go to the promised land. And all it takes to turn their back on him isn't even a complete sentence.
This is a little further in time. They didn't see the Red Sea parted themselves. This is after David, after Solomon. So some time has passed since the children of Israel came to the land. But I see what you're saying. What is it with the calves? I don't understand that. Aaron come up with a calf. Jeroboam came up with a calf. It's a horrible idea. I mean, what Jeroboam is doing is like, you can still worship God. God is, God, but these idols, they're the ones that brought you out of Egypt. The feasts that he did was during the exact same, so he replaced the feast, like, I think today, the correlation would be with, the Easter Bunny and Easter. And Santa Claus and I don't know. But Brother...
I think the trap is convenience. It's like,
yeah.
you gotta go all the way to Jerusalem to some temple. We're gonna set these out, we're gonna spread them out. You don't have to go as far.
Mm-hmm.
You don't like going to Jerusalem, you don't like those people.
Right.
Listen, we have a God that's a little bit easier.
I saw a hand over here, Sister Kathy.
It doesn't make sense to worship something that you would kill and eat. They ate.
Okay, yeah, the calf. Yeah.
Didn't they eat beef?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
That doesn't make sense.
One of the things that originally was the principal things that they sacrificed to Baal was pig. And I think that's one of the reasons that God prohibited them from eating that, is to set a difference between the children of Canaanite that sacrificed the pig, and in the lore of the false god, the way that they ate was people sacrificed stuff to them, and then they could eat it, the Baal and all that. But yeah, he's replacing, and in replacing God with these, it's mainly in his mind self-preservation. Like they'll go back to Judah and then they'll kill me. So let's not have them go up to Jerusalem. Instead of just saying we're going to worship God here, I'm going to make you a couple of visual things for you to look, golden calves. That makes zero sense to me. And God sends a prophet, and the idol that he sacrifices on, God destroys the altar. He kind of shows him, you're making a horrible mistake here. But they continued to do it anyway.
Kind of like us, huh?
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons that you look at Hosea's life and you're like, man, that seems awfully extreme for God to tell a guy to go do. I want you to go find a prostitute and go marry her. You're like, what? Oh, so he goes and does it, but Israel had went so far away from God. There's so many times that God has said, you know, maybe you even worship me with your lips, but your heart far from me, you know. He's trying to get these people to actually wake up and look. What do we say about today and idols? What is the definition of an idol today?
Anything that takes your eyes and attention and focus away from God.
Yes. Do you agree?
Could be a book, could be a golf club, could be anything.
Could be anything that you put over God, right? Our focus, our... Did you have a thought? Okay. Anything that we put in front of God, we are an idolater. And people don't really think about that nowadays, right? I'm not an idolater, you know, I just like that, you know. Sometimes people will begin sports and, well, it's you know, it's on Sunday that we get together and do these things. Yeah. Our congregation isn't quite so focused on maybe football or something like that, but I've seen a lot of places where afternoon services is cleared out because people are watching the Super Bowl, you know, Super Bowl Sunday. And I don't mind, but it's anything, person, things, material things. It's, you know, and as I started looking at Hosea, I started taking a hard look. Do I have anything that I've put in front of God? And I think we should occasionally ask that question to ourselves. Is there anything that I'm putting in front of God, over God, that I choose over God? You know, and you know, it's not just whether I'm at church when the doors are open. It's, is there anything that I have placed? You know, does my family come first before God? Is there anything? Like Brother Bill said, that is a good definition, and we should kind of adhere to that, you know? Go ahead.
I mean, it's a good goal to have. I don't know anybody that doesn't have an idol. Nobody. If you put it in that context. If you put it in the context, anything you put before God, everybody is an idolater. Do you know anybody that doesn't put anything before God?
But I don't.
Human, as in a human in the flesh. I know, Jesus, perfect example of putting nothing before God. But a man after God's own heart is an idolater.
Right. I mean, I guess my thought is, if you put it that way, is there occasionally things that I do that I put in front of God? Yeah, but it's like these people had made it institutionalized, and they made it a lifestyle where all the time things were in front of God. The Christians shouldn't do that. But
One of the things that you have to realize when you start a study like this, so that God's people, he brought them out of Egypt. But when they came out, they brought a mixed multitude with them.
mm-hmm.
So as they were coming out, they had people that grew with them that were still idol worshipers, that still believed the Egyptian way.
Mm-hmm.
So then God gave them their instructions. Don't do this and don't do this, and they ignored it.
Mm-hmm.
And so then when they came in and it was time that Joshua was having them divide up the property, God gave them specific instructions. Kill all those people that are in there, get rid of them.
Yeah.
And it was so severe that they were supposed to kill the women and the children, the animals, all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Did they do that?
No.
And they still had the mixed multitude mixed in among their own people.
Mm-hmm.
So of course it was an easy, just assimilate with those people and, oh, well, we don't want to kill this one, we'll marry this one.
Right.
And so then we come to the place where now, David's gone, he was a strong leader.
Yeah.
Who takes over his weak son?
Yeah.
And Rehoboam was a very weak king. He listened to the wrong
People, yeah.
And then here we go, now we're looking at what God is having to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And Baal was introduced and taken out of Judah many times. Many times. The groves, there's, what was it? Jehu did like a purge. You know, you can see all that history. The southern or the northern kingdom, they had Baal introduced to them not long after what we just read in 1 Kings 12. And then they almost never really come back to God after that. They, especially with Ahab and all of those kings, as you go through and look at those kings, there's really none of them that purge. Some of them begin to come back to God a little bit, but they never really purged like Judah did. There's times where Hezekiah gets rid of all of that stuff and comes back to God. There's a lot of revivals that happen in Judah, but almost never with the southern kingdom. And as you read through Hosea, in fact, God said, if we go back to Hosea chapter 1, in verse 6, and she conceived again, this is talking about Gomer, and bare a daughter, and God said unto him, call her name to Ramah, for I will no more have mercy upon the house of Israel, but I will utterly take them away. In verse 7, but I will have mercy upon the house of Judah, and will save them by the Lord their God, and will not save them by bow nor sword, nor by battle, by horses, nor by horsemen. So it's because they had embraced Baal and just continued in that worship of that idol. Does anyone remember the 450 prophets of Baal? You know, that was a big story, right? That's Elijah. That's, it's 1 Kings chapter 18. So we read 1 Kings chapter 12. That was the beginning of the northern kingdoms, and they're going away from God. Elijah comes on the scene, says, you know, if you're going to serve God, serve God. If you're going to serve Baal, serve Baal. Who's the true God? Let's find out right now. And the things that he does during that sacrifice were supposed to be Baal's forte. Baal caused it to rain. Baal was fire. Baal was all about sacrifice. All of those things, you know, and the prophets of Baal are like, well, if Baal's Baal, he should be able to do this, you know, no big deal. This is in his wheelhouse. That was 1 Kings chapter 18. And again, we see in 1 Kings 18 that God is God. And even then, with Ahab and Jezebel, they still don't go back towards God. They still cling to Baal. And then in Hosea chapter 1, last week we read from 1 to verse 10. And I did that on purpose because verse 11 is actually prophecy. He said in verse 6 something about Israel. He said in verse 7 something about Judah. And then in verse 11 he says, "Then shall the children of Judah and the children of Israel be gathered together and appoint themselves one head, and they shall come up out of the land, for great shall be the day of Jezreel." That's fairly important. I'm not going to be able to get to that because I want the backstory to that. We're going to run out of time before we get to what Jezreel means. We see that next week. But does anyone remember a prophecy like this that is exactly the same as what we just read? It is Ezekiel chapter 37 and the valley of the dry bones. He's talking about exactly this same thing. And I want to go there. And where did we leave off reading? We left off reading. Yeah. So we'll start with Brother Matt in Ezekiel 37. I'm trying not to lose you, but I'm trying to give you enough backstory so when we're reading Hosea, you're like, yeah, I get that because of what we saw. So in chapter 37, we'll start with Brother Matt in verse 16. So, and we're going to read 16, and we'll stop when we hit verse 23. So.
Moreover, thou son of man, take thee one stick and write upon it for Judah, and for the children of Israel his companions. Then take another stick and write upon it for Joseph, the stick of Ephraim, and for all of the house of Israel his companions.
And join them one to another into one stick, and they shall become one in thy hand.
And when the children of thy people shall speak unto thee, saying, Wilt thou not show us what thou meanest by these?
Say unto them, Thus said the Lord, thus said the Lord God, Behold, I will take the stick of Joseph, which is in the hand of Ephraim, and the tribe of Israel, his fellows, and will put them with him, even with the stick of Judah, and make them one stick, and they shall be one in mine hand.
And the sticks whereon thou writest shall be in thine hand before their eyes.
And go ahead.
What?
Verse 21.
21 and 30.
Ezekiel 37.
37. 21, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And say unto
them.
Unto them thus they said, the Lord God, behold, I will take the children of Israel from among the
Heathen.
whither they be gone, and will gather them on every side and bring them into their own land.
Hey, go ahead, Sister Kelly.
And I will make them one nation in the land upon the mountains of Israel, and one king shall be king to them all. And they shall be no more two nations, neither shall they be divided into two kingdoms any more at all.
Neither shall they defile themselves any more with their idols, nor with their detestable things, nor with any of their transgressions, but I will save them out of all their dwelling places where they have sinned, and will cleanse them. So they shall be my people, and I will be their God. And this is prophecy that has not been fulfilled yet, even though it's partially fulfilled in that they are all together. Their one king is coming back again to be their one king. That's part of the reason that I think they erred when the Messiah came, and they didn't clue into the fact that Jesus was their Messiah. They were looking for their king.
A lot of people worry that, the Jews are going to implant a false Messiah. They're going to find the Messiah they're looking for the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
And that gets prophesied throughout the New Testament.
Yeah.
Like they missed the initial part of it. They didn't understand, or they were willfully ignorant of it. But they're not going to miss the second time.
Right. It's going to be pretty plain. We'll get to that in Zechariah chapter 12 once we might take a bit. Keep in mind, and if you go back in Ezekiel chapter 37, in the first part of the chapter, it's the valley of the dry bones. Understanding that prophecy is paramount to the second coming, to clue it that he's going to take a nation that was pretty much dead and bring it back alive. That's why there's a nation of Israel today, is this prophecy. This was a long time ago that it was prophesied, and today we see it coming to pass. We need to understand as children of God that the end times are here and we're running out of time. His second coming is soon. But also, as we read through a lot of these prophets, like Joel, Amos was prophet the same time that Hosea was. A lot of these look pretty grim, pretty hopeless in some ways. And even as I think Brother Matt said this a few times too, God is always there with a second chance. He's like, judgment is coming. It's time to change. Always, as long as somebody is breathing and listening to the Word of God, if we've been rebelling for a while, there's always that call from God to change, to come back to Him. So there's so many times where it looks so grim, but even as He's giving a lot of these judgments to Israel, He's saying, come back, forsake. It's time to, there's never a time where you're like, it's hopeless. Coming back to God is not ever hopeless, ever. With even as you read some pretty hopeless situations that you see. Did you have a comment? I saw somebody's hand. What else did I want to say? I wanted to give you a lot of references about Baal and his descriptors, but I don't know if it's really necessary. If you guys would like to know some of the reading material about that false god of the Canaanites, a lot of that reference material is easily available. Some of the stuff that they... One thing about Ugarit and the Canaanites up there is the language is so similar to Hebrew that they could converse with one another. It's almost like if you go to Britain and talk with them, you can understand. There's a lot of words that they use in the UK that unless you know what it means, their English is different. Like, I don't know what a lorry is, or a flat, or there's a lot of English things that I don't understand. But in general conversation, you can kind of figure out what they're saying. That is a pretty good analogy of the Canaanites to the Hebrews. Abraham's family, where he came out of, was the Canaanites. God called him out of out of Ur, which isn't far. You're in the land of Canaan. It's Abraham. Where Abraham was called out of was today it's modern day Iraq, but it's also part of the land of Canaan. Is where Abraham came out of. His family tree is partially Syrian. If you read Ezekiel chapter 16, it kind of gives us the parentage of Abraham, where he came out of, which is kind of interesting to me. I almost want to go back there and read that, because he says his father was a Syrian and his mother was a Hittite. I think that's what he says. It's in Ezekiel chapter 16. So what I was going to say is when in about, I think it was 1920, archaeologists dug up the city of Ugarit. And they came across some cuneiform tablets that kind of told the story of the lore of the idol Baal and how they believed he came to be. And from the 14th century on up into the Babylonian times, and even some would argue into the Greek and Roman mythology, would be Baal. And even today, some of the symbolism that you see in Europe with the bowl and all of that other stuff, you could almost say he's kind of still around today. So from the 14th century. That was principally the rival to the real God of Israel is Baal. There's several others, but they point out the things that was the allure to Baal, and today people are still drawn to Baal. A lot of the allure of Baal was sexual immorality. God says, do this. One man, one woman. All of your affection should be on your wife and nobody else. And Baal was opposite of that. and was it institutionalized and made things okay because you were just worshiping Baal. It wasn't something that was wrong. God's morality is much better. And a lot of the other things that was the allure of Baal, the child sacrifice. Today, we do the same thing institutionalized with abortion. The abandonment of their kids. And today, people, man, I point out that like last year, 60 million children were aborted or murdered worldwide last year. 60 million. People are like, well, it's on the decline. Maybe in the United States, yes, but worldwide, 60 million. We talk about World War II being such a horrible thing. That was just a drop in the bucket compared to the abortion that we're doing worldwide today. So it's not a small thing that is going on. You know, I talk to people that are for it, and they're like, well, what about rape and incest and stuff like that? That's 1% of the cause. The rest of it's just convenience to murder your child. And they don't even put it that way. So, and that's the allure of Baal to the children of Israel, you know. So next week we'll get into chapter 2 of the book of Hosea. That's kind of the backstory. I tried not to lose it because we skipped a whole lot of history to go from Jeroboam to, and I ran out of time, but when Hosea comes on the scene, he is, Jeroboam the second is the one that is king of Israel. And that is because Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, was the original first king of Israel, or the northern kingdoms. And then we've gone on into, once Hosea is on the scene, it's Jeroboam once again, but it's Jeroboam the second. So let's stand. And next week we'll get into Hosea chapter 2. And Brother Boone, would you dismiss our class?
Heavenly Father,